Lieutenant Ryan, can you tell us how many accused are being held in this facility right now?
How many?
How many? How many? How many accused are being held in here right now? Do you know? Do you know how many of them have been able to speak with their attorney yet? You told us that no one had been moved out in preparation for today's protest. We don't know how many people are in here. Apparently Officer Ryan doesn't know. We don't know if they've gotten their telephone call. We don't know what kind of conditions they've been in. That's the problem of hosting black sites like this, is that there is no accountability. What little accountability there is at general police lockups is apparently completely lacking at this facility here. So they can hold suspects indefinitely and try and force false confessions out of them. We've had reports of beatings at this facility. We've had a report of one death. So the Chicago Tribune and the other Chicago media, before you repeat the line of the CPD is, don't worry, move along, nothing's happening here, investigate that death. Investigate those beatings. Ask the Chicago Police Department why they are not accounting for the people in this facility the way that they supposedly account for them, and I might add, not very well, at the other facilities around the city. We're spitting distance from the Harrison and Kedzie police lockup here. There's no reason why people need to be taken to a black site right over here on Homan. And I'd like to issue a challenge to the aldermanic candidates and Chuy Garcia. Rather than talking about hiring more police officers in the city of Chicago, talk about the black sites in our city. Talk about the lack of accountability for the existing police force that we've got. The existing police force that cost this city $50 million in lawsuits just last year alone. Every time you think about a closed mental health clinic, your closed neighborhood school, think about that $50 million. Think about that. And think about this also. We here in the city of Chicago live in a city that has the third highest police officer to civilian ratio of any city in the country of over 50,000 people. That's according to the FBI in 2012. The only two cities that beat us in that department are Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. The FBI stats counted all officers, federal, state, etc. So arguably, bearing that in mind, the city of Chicago has got the #1 municipal police officer per civilian ratio of all cities over 50,000 people in the nation. And yet we've got one of the worst violence rates. We've got more people killed in this town than New York City, a city 3 times our size, more than Los Angeles, a city 1 million more than us. So obviously those police officers are doing either a really crappy job about stopping violence, or it's not about stopping violence at all. I would argue the latter. We've got a problem of police violence and police brutality and misconduct in this city, and hiring more police officers won't do it in terms of stopping the violence. We need real jobs programs, jobs programs for city youth, where every youth who is willing to show up on time and work can be guaranteed a job. If you want to do something about violence, you start there. You stop tearing down low-income housing. You stop closing down mental health clinics. Those are the sort of things that can address not only police violence, but violence in general.
These torture techniques have been honed in U.S. wars against people around the world. CPD Detective John Burge learned his techniques in Vietnam. And the torture inflicted on people in the south and west sides of Chicago was exported to Guantanamo, where they took an even more grotesque form. Waterboarding over and over again, more than 100 times on one person. Held in cages in freezing cold and grueling heat. Loud noise and light, 24 hours a day. Held for years with no charges, no trial, no end. And then there's Richard Zuley, a Chicago cop who learned his torture techniques in Chicago and then took them to Guantanamo, where he participated in torture there against the prisoners. This trail of torture is long and winding. It leads from the cold concrete cells of Homan Square and the Chicago police stations to the stark cages of Guantanamo's Camp Delta, from the napalm-seared war against the liberation fighters of Vietnam in the 1960s to the attacks by occupying armies of police in the ghettos and barrios of Chicago over the last 40 years. We are wearing these orange jumpsuits today as a reminder that torture, and a symbol of solidarity with all the lives ruined and destroyed in this war of terror. This is a symbol that is recognized around the world, and it needs to be understood here in the U.S. too. We need to ask ourselves, what kind of country, what kind of system breaks the most fundamental rules of humanity